So far in the previous lectures, we have been talking about bounded type parameters and we have been talking about wildcards. So in this lecture, we are going to talk about what is the difference between these two approaches. So first of all, the most crucial problem is how to decide what to use, whether to use bounded type parameters or use upper bounded wildcards or lower bounded wildcards. And there is the so-called get and put principle, which helps us to decide what to do. So use upper bounded wildcard, so the extends keyword as far as the question mark, so as far as wildcards are concerned, when you only get values out of a structure or a collection. Use lower bounded wildcard, so the super keyword, when you only put values into a structure or a collection. So this is the main difference between upper bounded wildcards and lower bounded wildcards. Basically, we have been talking about these in the previous lectures. Whenever we want to read the values, then we have to use upper bounded wildcards. Whenever we want to insert and put values into a structure such as an array list, then we have to use lower bounded wildcard with the super keyword. And do not use the wildcard if you want to do read and write operations as well. In these cases, we can use the bounded type parameters instead. Okay, so let's talk a bit about a misconception about upper bounded wildcards. So we came to the conclusion that whenever we read the given values, then we should use upper bounded wildcards, and it may be quite confusing because we may have the intuition that upper bounded wildcards provide immutability. So if we want to make sure that the items are not going to be changed, then we should use upper bounded wildcards, but it is not true, because if we have, for example, a method with a wildcard argument, so list question mark extends t, of course, sorry for that, I forgot to add the name of the given variable, but anyways, what's crucial that here we are dealing with the extends keyword, which means that we are dealing with upper bounded wildcards. It is true that we cannot add items to that list, but we may add null values. So despite the fact that we are not able to add, for example, integers or any subtype of t, we can add null values, and of course this is why it is not going to provide immutability. And by the way, we can execute other operations such as sorting, so we may sort the underlying list data structure. So this is why upper bounded wildcards are not going to provide immutability. And finally, let's talk about wildcards and bounded type parameters. First of all, what's extremely crucial, that we can use bounded type parameters within a given method, while on the other hand, we can use wildcards wherever we want. So let's take a look at a concrete example. As far as the bounded type parameters are concerned, I guess that if we have this application.java, then there's going to be this t type. So as you can see here, for example, we can use the capital T as far as bounded parameter is concerned, and it has something to do with a given method. Then again, we can use another bounded type parameter with another method. So we can use bounded type parameters in methods exclusively, while on the other hand, as far as wildcards are concerned, I guess there's going to be an example where we have used the wildcard in the main method. So as you can see, we can use the wildcard, so the question mark, in the main method without any issue. We are not able to do the same with a t type, for example. So if we do something like this, then of course there's going to be a compile time error. So this is the first fundamental difference between wildcards and bounded type parameters. But of course, it is not that crucial. What's absolutely crucial, that as far as wildcards are concerned, we do not have access to the actual type. So wildcards are unknown types, while on the other hand, when we are dealing with bounded type parameters, we can access the t generic type. It is generic, so we don't know that what's going to be the type, but of course we can access it without any problem. Okay, then wildcards can handle a single bound, whether we use extends or the super keywords, while on the other hand, bounded type parameters can handle multiple bounds. So for example, if we are dealing with wildcards, then we extend, for example, number, and we would like to extend serializable as well, then of course it is not going to work fine. If we want to use extends and super at the same time, it is not going to work fine, because when dealing with wildcards, we can define a single bound. as far as bounded type parameters are concerned, here for example, t extends comparable and for example it extends number. If we use something like this, and of course we have to use something like this, as you can see it is going to work fine. So this is another difference between wildcards and bounded type parameters, that if we have multiple bounds, then we have no other option but to use bounded type parameters. Okay, and finally, you should use wildcards whenever possible. So basically, when we want to read the content of a collection, then of course we can use wildcards without any issue. If we want to insert the items into a generic collection, then of course we can use wildcards. But of course you should use bounded type parameters if you want to read and write as well. Okay, so this is when bounded type parameters can prove to be extremely important. Okay, so these are the fundamental differences between wildcards and bounded type parameters. Thanks for watching.